Welcome to the Run Out. I am Neil Barrett. He is Brandon Hooten. We have so much to talk about this week. We are officially 3 weeks. We are through 3 weeks of the PLL season. So far, we have no undefeated teams and no winless teams. 4 teams are 2-1. 4 teams are 1-2. The margins in this league are razor thin, and even teams like the Chaos that are on paper significantly worse are still capable of jumping up every week and running out with a win. But before we get into all of that action, Brandon, how's it going? I see we got at least some of the room set. I don't know what it looks like in the rest of the room, but the backdrop's looking good.
Yep. This is about all we have right now. Just my little corner. Yeah, we did some cleaning up this weekend, so I feel a little better about that, but still got, way too much stuff. I'm tempted to just throw it out at this point, but we'll get it put together at some point. But
no, I'm digging it. Every time I see you adding more stuff, I'm just like more and more jealous that all I have is these panel doors behind me. I want some cool stuff. I've got like Duke gear and stuff. I'm like, man, I want to display this stuff. Also, it's been a week. I'm cracking open a cold one for today's episode.
Whoa!
So
is that a cream soda?
That is an IBC cream soda. Here we go. It already popped the top. So
some ASMR action.
Oh yeah. So yeah, that's gonna be it. I don't really drink, so this is the equivalent of me cracking a cold one. So
hey, that's a good choice. It's crack.
I love me a good cream soda. Anyway. With that being said, let's get into the action. We will start with the Cannons and the Waterdogs. They played Friday night with the Waterdogs winning 14-11. Lots of big performances for the Waterdogs. I know we talked about this a little bit last week, but I don't know, something about the result kind of surprised me. Not so much that the Waterdogs won, but just how good they looked winning that game.
Yeah, no, I'm with you because I had the Cannons winning the game outright. We may have even talked about the fact that like the Waterdogs were going to keep this one pretty close. Like we didn't think they were going to get blown out or anything. But then to come away with a 3-goal win, especially I was also surprised seeing Dylan Ward get the start. It does make sense kind of saving your, better keeper, quote unquote, for the second day. But yeah, I was impressed. And Sowers had another great game. I think he's kind of cementing himself like atop of the MVP discussions, which we'll get into. But yeah, it was a good game.
So I'm interested to hear you say that. So you, in your mind, DeLuca is the starter, the better option for them, right? And not Dylan Ward. One of those things I feel like has been coming, but then I see it and I'm like, man, Dylan Ward is not starting. Like that it feels crazy, even though if you really kind of look at it, it makes sense.
Yeah, it pains me to say that because I love Dylan Ward, but unfortunately, like if you're a goalie, we talked about it last week, like the defense in front of you doesn't change much. So if he's saving 60+% and you're saving 47%, like I can't argue with the numbers. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think DeLuca now has had, a little bit of an unfair advantage because he's had 2 games versus Wardle's 1 game. But I still think like, and fully, to be fair, Dylan Ward had to play the Cannons as well, which is not an easy task. But I just think at this point in Dylan Ward's career, I don't know how much more he has left in the field lacrosse tank.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Although, like you said, I didn't feel like he looked bad. Kind of like we talked about with a couple of goalies last week. It wasn't that he looked bad. It's not like he was playing bad and that's why they were getting goals scored on them. I thought he looked good. It's the Cannons, like what are you going to do?
Yeah. And that's as your first game too. Like that's, that's not a great matchup for your first game back.
Well, and I also find it a little tough. I think one of the things that we don't talk about enough when it comes to goalies is we talk a lot about their ability to save the ball. And like, obviously that is paramount. That is item number 1 on the list. But I don't think that we talk enough about how much they control the defense in front of them and command and tell people what to do and calling out slide packages and stuff. And in that way, I think it's really hard to switch goalies back and forth when you've played 3 games and every other game you have switched goalies. Like, that can be really, really tough, especially if, and I don't know this to be true, but if like Matt DeLuca had been kind of the guy running with the number ones throughout training camp and stuff, they've listened to him all the time, for the week of training camp, and then they went into game 1 and listened to him behind them. They know what he's calling and stuff. And then for one game, it gets flipped over to Dylan Ward, and you're playing, by the way, one of the best teams in the league with the Cannons. So, I feel for him a little bit, but again, like we said, this has been one of those things that's probably been coming for a couple of years now. They've been building towards making this transition. So, like you said, I feel for him. I think that he's still a great goalie, maybe not as great as he has been in the past, but other big names in this game, Michael Sowers obviously is, like you said, the name to talk about in this game. He had 7 points on 2 goals and 5 assists. Just absolutely monster game from him again. And then the other one, probably especially for me, that people want to hear about is Coulter McAsee, because I've been talking about Will Manny and stuff. So Coulter McAsee had 3 goals. I don't want to say that he played bad. He was good. He had 3 goals. Like, you can't argue with that. But there were a few times when he picked up the ball in places and I was like, what's happening here? Like, things that, and again, I don't want to put Coulter McAsee against Will Manny, because my point was never that it should be one or the other. My thought was that you can get both of them on this field pretty easily. But there were a few that, because some of the conversation has been one or the other, there was a few times I saw him pick up the ball and shoot, and I was like, what was that? He missed by like 5 or 6 feet once, and I was like, yeah, Will Manny probably buries that. Again, not to pit them against each other, that's not my point. But all in all, 3 goals in his second game. Like, it's a good start. And while we're talking about Will Manny, I was told by someone who 100% knows that Will Manny is having some something that's going on, like, inside his family. No details or anything. Whatever it is, I hope it clears up. But that is the reason why he's not played the last 2 games. It was not a lacrosse decision, though. This person expressed the frustration that I also have, that, like, I wish they could tell us that when these, like, crazy puzzling decisions come out. I know they can't put everyone's, like, business out there and stuff, and I get that. And maybe even saying, it's a family issue or something, maybe even that is too much information, because then people start asking more personal questions and stuff. So maybe you don't want to go that route. But I was like, they could at least be like, hey, this was not a lacrosse decision or something, something that lets you know. One of the things I think the PLL does not do a great job of is transparency. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox on that one. Anything else really stood out to you on this one? I just thought the Waterdogs looked so good in that win, and I think at the end of this game, everyone was like, oh yeah, Philly's probably the best team in the league, or at least in the conversation up there.
Yeah, but before we talk, more about them, I will say Owen Grant was pretty impressive, top to bottom, on both ends of the field. It's just fun watching him play. So I'm glad he's back and healthy. And he himself had 3 points, which I know he had the 2 bomb, which helps, but, like, still to bury that and get an assist as well. I thought that was great. But yeah, the Waterdogs are looking pretty scary. Thomas McConvey 4 points again, McCardle 3, Zach Courier 3, Sauer 7. They're looking good. Statistical, I thought, performed, as expected versus Tucci. Not that he blew him out of the water or anything, but yeah, I think it's safe to say that they're one of the better, probably top 3 teams in the league, maybe even pushing top 2.
Yeah, after this game, I felt really good about them, and then after the second game, which we'll get into, it's hard to know because we know these back-to-backs are hard, and no one this season has won both of their games in the back-to-back. So it's hard to know like what part of them losing that second game was the back-to-back part, and what part was just losing a game that maybe they the Outlaws just beat them, like it's hard to really know. So but yeah, so I think the big thing was just kind of the surprise. Again, like you said, we both kind of picked the Cannons to ultimately win, even though we thought it would be a really good game. And so for me, it was really about how they won with them. I felt like they really kind of, the 14-11, a lot of that was the Cannons scoring some kind of late goals to pull just a little bit closer. I don't even think it was really a 3-point game, really.
No, I mean, they scored 3 goals in that fourth quarter compared to Philly's 1. So, I mean, and that third quarter for Philly, and really the first as well, 5 goals in each of those, like that, that you're going to win a lot of games when you start that well, and then, start the second half that well as well. So, obviously, I'd like to see them maybe pull away more in the fourth, just, in case a big run happens from Boston or whoever, but I'm not worried about them. Like we talked about last week, they're so deep, like they have infinite possibilities right now.
Yeah, well, and I think one of the things that this game really showed was how good their defense is, and that, again, we'll get into the second game later, but I think that was still present the next night, was just how good that defense really is. Kenny Brower is just shutting people down right now. Putting him on the number 1 is just absolutely, it almost guarantees that they're going to have like a 1-point night or less. So and then of course, Ben Randall and Jimmy Freehill, right? Jimmy?
Yeah, Jimmy.
Okay, Jimmy Freehill are just crushing it. I think Ben Weyer fits so well with them. You got Eli Gobrecht running short stick defensive midi. Like it's just it's turning into one of those like can't miss defenses. So anyway, with that being said on that game, let's move into probably the game of the weekend, the Archers and Redwoods game. The Archers just did enough to win 12-11. Dylan Malloy was the leading point getter for the Redwoods with 4 points. He had 2 goals and 2 assists. Sam Hanley, the newly acquired Redwoods player, had 3 points in his debut with 1-point goal and a 2-point goal as well. I talked a little bit about him. I think he can be good. It's interesting to see his role in this Redwoods team. He doesn't. I think with the Outlaws, he was kind of being looked at as like their main kind of midfield initiator. There weren't many guys in that team that could dodge from the midfield, and so a lot of that was put on him. And this Redwoods team, he's not that guy. It's like we talked about with Chris Kavanaugh. Yeah, Chris Kavanaugh, how he can kind of play off a little bit. The pressure's not on him to create. He can use some space and stuff. And I thought at least one game into the Sam Hanley experience, we'll see what happens. But at least one game in, I thought he looked really good. And then the other one, of course, was as usual, Tom Schreiber doing Tom Schreiber things, having 5 points in the game, to lead all scorers with 3 goals and 2 assists. He also made probably the play of the game when he ran from the far post, like just over midfield of the width of the field, and sprinted from that far side all the way over to chase out a ground ball and kept possession for the Archers, and then immediately made the pass to Sam King for a 2-point goal that put the Archers up. I believe it was 2. I believe it was a tie game. Sam King hit that goal that put them up by 2, and then they ended up winning by 1. So that was in the third quarter, so it's a little hard to say it won them the game, I guess, but obviously probably a hugely impactful play on that game. So
yeah, no, I thought Sam Handley looked more comfortable in this offense, like just playing like it didn't matter. Not that it didn't matter, but just that it was like, hey, I'm just here to like you're playing free. Like I'm just here to help you guys type of deal. Whereas I do believe that like on the Outlaws, it was more of like okay, you're like an initiator. Like this is your role. You have to do this every single time. And I don't know that necessarily is going to suit him, the best. Obviously, I can make that argument right now when he had 3 points in this one game. So, and including a 2-point bomb. So I thought he looked good. Dylan Malloy, again, another impressive performance. I thought TD would have done a little bit more against Sis, just with, the wing play of the Archers not being there. But, I thought both guys, gave a great fight. Both of them had 2 points. I think this was Chase's probably best game in goal so far, at least percentage-wise. I'll have to look that up. But, Dobson didn't look too hobbled with his injury. And, it was cool because it was like, I thought the Archers were going to run away with it when there was 4-0, and then slowly but surely the Redwoods kind of climbed back, and then that fourth quarter, both teams had 4 goals. So, and if I'm a Redwoods fan, honestly, I'm coming away with this feeling pretty positive. I know, like, moral victories don't feel good, but you took the back-to-back defending champs, down. You went down swinging, and you lost by 1. So, I'm feeling pretty good, and, I would like to see the Archers maybe be more dominant, obviously, just with who they've been over the past couple years, but this type of stuff's going to happen over the course of a game in a year as well.
Yeah, to your point, yes, that was Chase Erlin's best statistical game. 54% was the best he has done in a game, and was able to match Brett Dobson. Brett Dobson also had 54%. So Chase had 13 saves, Brett Dobson had 12. So, they're right there kind of with each other. And I do think that was like a big part of this game and how it kind of played out. It was really interesting to me. We talked about how this Archers defense will keep them in games. And this was one where like the offense was struggling for parts of it, and the defense was doing just enough to keep them in the game. That, like you said, they were up 4-0 at the beginning of the game, and you thought, okay, maybe they're going to run away, but it ended up being a 6-6 halftime because the Archers only had 1 goal in the second quarter. So it's one of those things where I want to say that the Archers are one of the best teams in the league because you feel like this defense is so good and is going to keep them in every single game, and they have all of the weapons they need on offense. They're just not quite putting it together right now. But if they ever figure that out, I mean, it's tough to beat them right now. So like if they can figure it out, like it's going to be real tough.
Yeah. And I mean, Connor Fields is having kind of a weird start to the year. And maybe we're just expecting more from him just because he's coming off of an NLL MVP and like he's the big name. But I mean, only 4 shots in this game, only 1 point. Obviously they got the win, so it doesn't necessarily matter. But I'd like to see him get more involved. But then again, like if you're getting 2 points out of assists and you're getting 3 out of Sam King, like maybe he doesn't need to, score as much. But like you said, like their defense I thought was fairly good for at least 2 quarters. They weren't great in the second or fourth quarter, giving up 4 goals each. But yeah, like I still think they're one of the best. But it goes back to the question of like, did the Waterdogs jump them this weekend? Just and I'm not necessarily willing to say they for sure did, but I think it's interesting. It'll be interesting to monitor, the next couple of weeks, especially if Dobson's injury continues to linger and, like we'll see. Because like you said, like, and we've talked about this, I think, with Blaze in the past, like, if you're going up against Blaze, really, or Dobson, I think, if the two that come to mind, like, your goalie has to match them at bare minimum.
Right.
Like,
right.
And that goes along with your defense as well. Like, you guys have to match physicality. You can't be giving up a ton of crazy goals. And I thought Chase in their defense also did a great job against the Archers offense. So, I think this will be a good rivalry to kind of watch between these teams moving forward. But yeah, this was for at least game of the weekend for me, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. To your point about Connor Fields, 17 touches. That's for
it feels
him,
low.
that is nothing. He had that's about half of what Matt Moore had.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a ton, and I'm confused as to why. Like, why is he not getting that many touches? It's worked for them mostly, so I'm not necessarily saying it has to change, but it does feel weird, like you said, the NLL MVP coming off of this great box season. He had a great season in the PLL last year where he was getting a lot of touches, and now he's not. And again, it's working, so I'm not complaining. I'm not saying it should be more, but I'm doing quick glance here. I believe that he's like fifth in terms of touches out of, the starting six, basically. So that is strange. Let's say that's strange, and you would expect to see more. So
yeah, but I mean, we'll see if that changes going forward. Because honestly, if he's good as a decoy and they're winning games, then I mean, who cares? The other thing I'll mention too is, like, Mac O'Keefe finally got one. That was good to see. Didn't shoot the best, but I thought as soon as he hit that one, I was like, okay, he'll find his rhythm now. And maybe once Mac gets going, maybe that opens it up for Connor. Because then all of a sudden, like, okay, you really have to kind of sell out for Mac or sell out for Connor. So we'll kind of see where that goes. But I think this next week that'll be something to really pay attention to. Is like, is it just that they're looking him off? Is it that the defense really is zoning in on him and saying, hey, all the rest of you guys need to beat us? Because I can see that too. Like, I don't want the ball in Connor Field's stick if I'm a defender.
Like, no, that's true. That's true. Let's move on to the games on Saturday. We will start with the Atlas and Whips. Probably without a doubt, the shock of the weekend. The Whips win 16-2. Atlas was up 6-0 and then 8-1. But from the 9:47 mark with 9:47 left in the second quarter until the end of the game, the Whips outscored the Atlas 15-4. That was just an insane game. TJ Malone was, of course, doing TJ Malone things. He had 5 points on 3 goals and 2 assists. But I feel like we probably got to start with your boy.
Who was that? Aiden Carroll?
Aiden Carroll, 4 points, 3 goals, 1 assist. We were texting a little bit during this game, and he had been a little quiet, and then all of a sudden, when they got hot, and I think he was a part of that. Was he started scoring, which I think got TJ going, which got some other guys going. So it's funny to watch and see him every week now that you made your rookie of the year prediction, and you said that was because he was going to have the opportunity to step up. And we'll talk about this in a minute, but I think this was the blueprint for how the Whips move forward and win games. Another big one to talk about was Colin Heacock. In his first game back this season, he scored 3 goals, looked impressive, kept most of his goals were early, so he kind of kept them in it, kept it from getting too out of hand. Again, when it hit 8-1 and you just thought this is gonna be bad, and then he scored a couple of goals and you were like, oh, okay, maybe there's something here. I don't think any of us thought they were going to come back and win, but there was at least something that was going to kind of keep them somewhat competitive.
Yeah, no, I thought obviously props to the Whips for even fighting back. Like, when it was 8-1, I was like, okay, this is a waste of time. Like, just
Yeah.
can we forfeit? Like, you know what I mean? That type of thing. And I thought they shot really well. Like, Patra, 4 goals, 6 shots. Aiden Carroll, 3 goals, 5 shots. Heacock, 3 goals, 4 shots. Like, and I thought, I even texted you about this. Like, Rob Pennell was dishing to Heacock really well. It felt like, I don't know if all 3 of his goals were from Pennell, but it felt like them.
I think it was only 2.
Okay,
because even then, had 3 assists and 1 was to Malone. So
okay, so even then, 2 of the 3, like, that connection seems to be working. And I think I mentioned this when I gave you my Rookie of the Year pick. Like, I felt like at some point the veterans would kind of get pushed out. Obviously, Rambo still suited up and then had to come in, due to unforeseen circumstances. But I do think that's kind of like this is like you said, how they move forward. I don't think you're benching Heacock again unless he starts playing bad. You have your young core. Defensively, to give up 9 goals in the first half and then only 3 over the whole second half is incredible. And to just not get down on yourself as a team more than anything is what I'm impressed with. Because like I said, there was a point where I was like, this is over, move on to the next one. And I didn't see a single person, including myself, pick the Whips to win this game. So like the entire community, I think, was pretty surprised to see them even be competitive.
If anyone is listening, I take it back. I know 2 people that picked it. Googs, he picked them. And Alex, Whipsnake Nation, they did, but they're both massive Whipsnakes fans. Like they were never going to not pick them. Right. So I think that they picked them because they're fans, but I don't think even they thought they had a really good shot. But to your point about the defense and about them kind of coming out in that second half and kind of shutting Atlas down for large portions of that second half. Something about this game, especially that second half, really felt like maybe, just maybe, Jim Stagnita is starting to figure what this team looks like and how it needs to be set up in order to move forward. And that is a scary proposition, I think, in this league, because I don't think anybody would say that the only debate about who's the best coach in the PLL's kind of 6-year history so far is Jim Stagnita and Chris Bates. Those are the only 2 names that you can put out there, and I think most people would think Jim Stagnita, because not just because of the championships, but because of the teams that he's taken to other champions, not just the 2 that he won, but especially that team last year. That team last year should not have been in the championship game, and he got them there. He has done so much more than I think he probably really should have, I guess. And so if he's starting to figure this out, like, crap. Like, that's all I could think was like when I was watching that second half unfold and being like, oh, he's making some changes. It looks like he's starting to figure some stuff out. I was just like, crap. Like, we're going to end up with the freaking Whipsnakes back in a championship game again. But to that point, I know Rob Pennell has been a huge talking point for this team, and I have maintained that I think he can still play in this league. I think he still has a role. I know TikTok boys are saying he needs to go to the glue factory. That's been the thing that they're talking about, and it was actually really funny, and I felt bad for laughing because I'm not with them, but it was really funny to hear. But when one of the things that I specifically noticed in this game was the change to RP3 and how he's playing. He's not picking up the ball off the end line, even though he is the ex-attackman. TJ Malone comes down and picks it up when it goes out on a shot or whatever. He comes down, so he's that initiator. He's not picking it up off the sidelines. He was running a lot up top, like from above the goal, even though, again, he plays as the ex-attackman, like 90% of it, but then when he gets the ball, he like moves up. It was an interesting thing, and to that point, he had what was it? It was 17 touches. Is that what it was? He had 24 touches. Sorry.
Yeah.
24. But when I went back and looked, that is his lowest number of touches since the very first game he played as a Redwood, which he only had 8 touches in, which is such a low number. I couldn't find a recap of this game, but it's such a low number. I was like, did he get hurt in that game or something and like come out? Because there's no way Rob Pennell only had 8 touches, especially, 3 years ago when he was still like one of the best attackmen in the world. So, and then I don't have any data before that because they didn't record touches before that season. So, all that to say, 24 is the lowest number of touches he's had in a game in 3 years, and it's a very, very uncommon thing, but it looked like an intentional thing to get the ball out of his hands, and kind of like we talked about with Chris Kavanaugh, like we just talked about with Sam Hanley, there was something about kind of taking the burden of being the primary initiator off that seemed to somewhat help. And I still think Rob Bennell's one of the best passers in the game right now. So, when you can get the ball in his stick and have him quarterback, I think it's good. And clearly it worked for them this weekend.
Yeah, well, and it helps when you hold Jeff Teat to his second 1-point game in 3 games. So, don't know what's going on there. It's a little concerning. I don't think any of us expected him to have his like record-breaking year like he had last year, but it's like to go 1 point week 1, 6 points your second game, and then back to 1 is just like, and 1 shot too is Trevor Baptiste took 2 for reference. So
yeah. Well, and I think it was either, can't remember if it was Joe Keegs or Adam Lamberti, but somebody tweeted out that as a professional lacrosse player, Jeff Teat has 3 1 or less point games. 2 of them have come this season.
Yeah.
And that's insane. Like I can't, like you said, 6, he didn't just break the record last year. He obliterated the record last year. He beat it by 20 points.
Yeah, he basically doubled it. Like,
it's insane. And now 3 games into the season, he's got 8 points. He had what, 11 in the first game last season, so he hasn't even hit the number of points he had in the first game last season. And listen, this reminds me so much of the conversation about John Tillman that we had a couple weeks ago. Nobody's saying that Jeff Teat should be benched or
no, that's not happening.
or anything. It's just crazy that 3 games into the season, 2 of the games he's played have been 1-point games for a guy of his caliber, and we all know what he's capable of. The flip side of that is that Connor Schellenberger had 7 points on 3 goals and 4 assists. He looked great, at least in the first half.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that anybody really looked great in the second half for the Atlas. So that kind of brings us to the question here. Did the Whips win or did the Atlas lose?
I thought about this question all weekend after the game, and I thought I had one answer, and then I switched and thought I had a different answer. And honestly, I'm going to do a cop-out and say kind of both. On one hand, I feel like, because initially I was like, the Atlas just sold. Like, point-blank period, you're up 8-1, like, there's no excuse, okay? But then on the other hand, I was like, at the same time, like, the Whips literally, like, you could tell they started figuring things out as the game went on, and started playing like, okay, we know what we're doing out here. We're not just like running around like chickens with our heads cut off. And I thought like there was a save Brendan Krebs made late in the game. I forget who took it from up top, but he saved it clean. And who knows if that goes in, like we're probably talking about a different ending, because I think then the Whips went on to score 3 or 4 more goals, whatever it was. But I don't know. It's I don't want to like say Atlas sold and then not give any credit to the Whips. But I think if I had to for sure pick one, I would probably say the Atlas just straight up kind of gave them the win. Because how do you score 3 goals in the second half? And you have the reigning MVP on your team and Connor Schellenberger.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and Matt Trainer and, you know, Miles Jones and, you know, they all the guys that they have on that roster. So, yeah, you asked this question, and I think it's a question that we make so black and white, and not that we shouldn't ask it, you know, whatever. Because I think it is an interesting conversation of you know which one took place, but it's almost always some version of a little bit of both.
Yeah.
You know, obviously the Whips really turned it on. They started hitting shots. They started playing really, really good on the defensive end and stuff. So it's hard to say that they didn't win. But also, Atlas at the very least took their foot off the gas. You know, that was crazy.
They turned the car off. They didn't just take their foot off the gas. They put that thing in park and just they turned the car off. I mean, again, you can't be up 7 goals and not just lose, but lose by 4. That's an 11 goal swing. Right. You know what I mean? Like, that is such a ridiculous pendulum of points. Like, it still is insane to me that they even, 9 goals in the fourth quarter they allowed to Maryland. Like,
Yeah. Well, and, you know, do you think about it? They probably took their foot off the gas in the second.
Oh, yeah.
And that's when Maryland started kind of making it somewhat respectable, but they still went in at halftime 9-5. Like, they still had a good lead and the break, and then it was like they came out and it was just like they didn't do anything, and almost immediately Adam Patra scored a goal, and then TJ Malone followed one up with a few minutes later, and it wasn't until there were 90 seconds left in the third quarter before Atlas put one on the board, and that, you know, was kind of a play out of nothing. You know, the assist on that goal was Liam Intiman, so, like, you know, it was just kind of a heave down field and ended up with Connor Schellenberger, and then you know, I think that I would say. Yeah, I think I would say that Atlas lost more than the Whips won, but also the Whips have to put the ball in the back of the net still. So, you know, I don't want that to take away from what the Whips did, because they still went out and beat I say a team that is very good, but maybe
on
they're
paper
not
they're
as
great,
good as we thought, right?
And mind you, this was also a game where, like, it felt like every goal was a behind the back goal. At one point, when the Atlas had 6 goals, 3 of them were behind the backs.
Or behind the backs.
And I'm not one that thinks that, like, behind the backs are showboating at all, but, like, they were killing them so bad that, like, they could get away with it. Matt Trainor's behind the back when he's, like, 10 yards back. Like, why even attempt that in my mind? And he buries it. Like, so go from that and you're just having fun with your boys, just, like, you know, up 8-1, to then scoring 3 whole goals in the second half. And, like, it's all just like, okay, well, at least we stopped a run. Like, you know, it's awful.
Which behind the back was more impressive, Matt Trainor's or Tyler Carpenter's with the pole?
Oh, see, that's a tough pick, because when I think I said something on Twitter like behind the back goals should be worth double in PLL fantasy, and then Tyler Carpenter hit his, and I quote tweeted it and was like, but long pull back behind the backs need to be worth 4 times, because I've never seen a long pull do that. So just because of that, I'm gonna have to go with Tyler Carpenter, but not taking away from Matt Trainor's, because his was just like, why are we even attempting this right now?
I forget what the exact stat is, but that stat came out last year when Tyler Carpenter kind of was showing up and just like blowing out offensive numbers and people were like, wait, where did this come from? And he had like some crazy number of points in high school for a LSM. He had like, I want to say it was like 200 points as a long pole in high school or something.
Wow.
It was some crazy number. And so it's like, and as a Duke fan, watching him for 4 years at Duke, he didn't put up numbers like that. He didn't put up numbers like he's putting up in the PLL, but he put up numbers like you could see he could get out and run and push the ball in transition and play a give and go or whatever and bury it. But for me, I think I would go with the Matt Trainer one again, maybe because I watched Tyler Carpenter for 4 years at Duke, and I don't know that I've seen him do that. It was impressive, but I have seen him make offensive plays, so it was less of a surprise to me. That Matt Trainer behind the goal, I have never seen somebody shoot behind the back with that much like velocity behind it. That was insane, and he stuck it like I don't think he could have gotten it farther into that corner.
No.
And it just, the only thing that I could think of in the moment was the only other behind the back that I was ever as impressed with as that Matt Trainer goal was I think it's Paul Gate, not Gary Gate. I think it's Paul Gate has one when he was playing at Syracuse in the late 80s, and he throws a behind the back, like seriously, like 30 yards directly to a guy's stick. He's like just crossing midfield, and he throws behind the back to a guy right on the crease, and it just hits him in the stick, and he buries it. And it was like,
wow.
Yeah, I was like, wait, hold on. And then that Matt Trainer was those were the two I could think of. I'm not saying one is or isn't better than the other, but all I could think of was that's the most impressive behind the back play I've seen since Paul Gate, or like I said, I'm pretty sure it was Paul Gate. So I don't know, but I was very impressed by that shot. Unfortunately, it's all for naught because they lost the game. So like, congrats, you hit the longest homer in a blowout loss. Like, I don't know what to say. So,
hey, made Sports Center. That's all that matters.
That's true. I think it was actually number one on Sports Center too, wasn't it?
They had so many goals that could have been on Sports Center. I don't even know.
I know. All right, but let's move on to the final game of the weekend, where your Denver Outlaws played the Philadelphia Waterdogs in their second of the back-to-back weekend. The Outlaws won 9-7. Pat Cavanaugh had his best game as a pro, finishing with 4 points on 3 goals and an assist. The Waterdogs did not score in the third quarter, and we all know that not scoring, going a whole quarter without scoring, is almost always a death toll for your team. Almost nobody does that and wins. It's happened once or twice that I can think of, but if you go a whole quarter without scoring, you're almost guaranteed to lose. That being said, I thought this game was incredibly even. Like even if you look through the stats, almost everything was right there. Even this was such a dead heat game, and I'm not sure who that says more about, the Outlaws or the Waterdogs.
I think it says more about the Outlaws. Philly, they're on a back-to-back. Like, no team has won on that back-to-back for a reason. Just it's hard to win when you played a game the night before, literally within 24 hours. It's not like they waited 24 and then played. Like, they're really playing on like 20 hours within each other. So to me, it's like, it was nice to see the Outlaws win. I obviously picked against them, so if that's what it's going to take for them to win, I will gladly pick against them every single week. But for me, like, two main things in this game were just I thought that the Outlaws defense did a great job on Michael Sowers, holding him to 2 assists. Like, I don't think you can play him much better. And then obviously Logan McNaney coming in with 14 saves on 67% save percentage. Like that's why I was clamoring for him to be put in. What was it, 2 weeks ago? And when we were getting kind of blown out a bit, and it was just like, you have nothing to lose, let's put him in. And then sure enough, he starts this game, and he had an iffy first quarter, but after that he really settled in. And if he can play like that consistently, or even just a fraction of that, like, I feel much better, especially if the offense for the Outlaws is only putting up 9 goals. I thought the 2 they put up in the second half was kind of disappointing. Just, you go from 7 in the first half to 2. Brendan O'Neill was not Brendan O'Neill. Took 9 shots and only hit 1, which was frustrating. Again, when you have guys like Jake Pacino with 3 points, I'm always going to be frustrated by that, because it's awesome for Jake, and it's awesome that our LSM and our transition guys can do that, but we got to get our offense involved at some point. Justin Anderson, another nothing burger, unfortunately. So I can't say I'm walking away from this as an Outlaws fan being like, yeah, we got to win. Like, it's just one of those, like, it's cool, but this isn't going to cut it moving forward at all.
Yeah, well, that's why I would say it says more about the Waterdogs, because, like you said, on the back end of a back-to-back that pretty much no one has won, they played this Outlaws team pretty much evenly. I'm like you. I think I come out of this game feeling slightly more disappointed. It feels like a game that the Outlaws should have won and been better in. Not just won, obviously they did win, but should have been better in. I thought they played pretty well in the first half, and then, like you said, that second half was not very inspiring at all. That being said, the second half from the Waterdogs was worse. So, take what you can get.
But again, if that's coming on Logan McNaney playing well in the second half. If he can't hold up to that standard every week, and the offense puts up 2 goals, we're looking at a very different game. And then the Waterdogs come away with this as the first team to win their back-to-back, so.
Yeah. Logan McNaney ended up at 67%, which off the top of my head was the best performance of the weekend. Excuse me, goodness gracious, that was gross and rude. Apologies. That is not good ASMR right there. So yeah, to your point, that is a, like you said, if he can't maintain that level, it could be tough, because you figure, Matt DeLuca was at 60%. If Logan McNaney's at 60%, that's still a pretty good game at this level from any goalie. Getting 60% is pretty good, but they probably lose that game if he's at 60%. Yep. So, the other thing that really jumped out to me was Pat Cavanaugh's touch numbers. He had 51 touches. That's a lot for any one player to have, but especially like we talked about last week, of the kind of 4 Waratah players that they have on that list, he's probably regarded as the least of them. Maybe you would put him over Logan Wisnauskas, especially with all the time that Logan missed. But for him to have not just a touch or 2 more, he had 11 more touches than Brennan O'Neill, who had, the next closest person is 13 touches below that. So, I would be more inclined, again, not to hate on Pat Cavanaugh, and they got the win. So, it's hard to look too down on it, but it feels like there should be some better distribution. But I wonder how much they miss. Again, I know he didn't play great in terms of the scoreboard, but I wonder how much they miss a Graham Bundy and not a Graham Bundy, a Sam Hanley in their offense as that midfield initiator, because I don't think they really have one on their roster right now other than Jared Bernhardt. He's that one guy, but even he only had 22 touches. So, you know, he had half of what Brennan O'Neill had, less than half of what Pat Cavanaugh had. So, it's interesting to see how they're going to start figuring this out. And unlike the Whips, I didn't leave this game feeling like they were figuring things out.
No. And honestly, like, as far as touches go, like, I'm sure they'd be a little bit more evenly distributed had the sub game been better. It was alarming how many times you're watching a play and half the shot clock is gone before they get all their guys on the field. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure what's causing that slowdown going from defense to offense, but something's happening there where it's like they get the ball and all of a sudden they have to rush, or now one guy's playing iso ball just holding it. Mm-hmm. And you don't have time to shift the defense and pass the ball around. So like when that's happening, it's like, yeah, you're gonna get a guy like Pat Cav that has the ball in his stick a ton because now you have to go make a play, and that's the other reason I wasn't entirely impressed with this game. It was stuff like that that's like, at what point does that get fixed? This is week 3. Your third game, and it's still happening. So, I mean, we'll see if that gets fixed. Because, again, if we're putting up 9 goals, like, this might be the only win if that's the case.
Well, and to your point, they called it out in the game at least once that I remember. I guess it was probably Kark or someone called out that Tarafinko and I think Pacino had run down, even though there wasn't a like break opportunity on, what at least we used to. I don't know if the lingo's changed. What we used to call like a slow break, where there's not really a fast break opportunity. And Tarafinko and I think Pacino, 2 of the defensive guys, came all the way down. Were playing like in and around the crease, and it was like 12 seconds left on the shot clock before they turned and tried to run back to the box. And so then by the time the offensive guys got on the field, there was less than 10 seconds left for them to try and make something happen. And even the announcers were like, what are we doing here?
Just stay and play at that point. You made the effort to run down there. Just stay down there. Like,
or get off the field. Again, it's one thing when it's like a fast break and there's like a give and go, or you've got someone trapped or something, but like you just stood there, you just like ran down while you should have been. I don't know. It does feel like a mess, and like you said, like at what point is this going to get better? But excuse me, that just kind of proves like amassing talent is not enough. People always say, well, they had so and so and so and so and so and so on their roster, and it's like, yeah, but I mean that's not enough. It's not enough, especially in this league with everybody has this crazy amount of talent. So
yeah, and I mean defensively too. One just to add this on, like Mike Manley got caught on offense too many times. There was one where he ran all the way down there, had plenty of time to get off, and just kind of like lingered. And I was like, okay, you got to make a decision here. Nick Grill, I didn't take note of in the second half, but the first half, not his best half of lacrosse. And there's still just a little bit of that iffiness of like, I don't fully trust them right now. I think they've gotten better game over game, but I do think it is tough to like monitor that in this game because you're playing a team that just played the day before. I'd feel much better if we're playing a team that was fresh, coming off of a bye or coming off of a game the week before. But there's just so I feel like I left this game with almost the same amount of questions as I had coming into it, despite the win. So like, yeah, again, it's awesome to see us get a win, but like they have so much more to prove. So like I said, though, if the Outlaws are listening, if I have to pick against you for you guys to like play well, I will do that moving forward. Just let me know.
The one thing, kind of going back to what I said a little bit earlier, the one thing that I will give you is you were talking about that offense or that defense, how they have looked a little bit better every week. They've gotten a little bit better, a little bit tighter. And again, we talk about you just put in a new goalie for his first real experience because he was out of training camp, right? Because he was in the national championship, so he missed at least a good chunk of training camp, and then he hasn't played the first 2 weeks, so you probably got minimal, experience with him during practice, and now he's in, and now you're going to start learning the way that he plays and the way that he wants the defense moving and stuff, and hopefully that again kind of solidifies that defense for them even a little bit more, and then then they got to figure out the offense. So they're not there, but they're halfway there. Maybe that's the better answer. And we've seen the Chaos made a habit out of that of we have a rock solid defense and a good goalie, and we're going to figure out the other end in time for the playoffs and just make a run. So maybe that's what the Outlaws got in them. So who knows? But with that being said, and the last game of the weekend wrapped up, we have now every single team in the league has played 3 games. So we talked about it a little bit. How would you rank them? Maybe not a hard and fast 1 through 8, but how are we seeing the teams? Because especially that middle part where the Whipsnakes are and the Atlas are and stuff, it's like there's a lot of debate there about who could be over who. So
yeah, I think I'm going Philly and Boston are definitely like my top 2, I think. Then I'd probably
Archers?
No, they're not top 2 right now. I'd probably
Why?
put them 3. I mean, Dobson's obviously hobbled. They didn't beat the Cannons. The Redwoods took them to the brink. And the Redwoods are good. I'm not saying they're bad, but just I don't see them as well put together right now as Boston or Philly. I think you could probably switch them if you wanted to with Boston maybe, but they're not as scary to me as the last 2 years. So I'd probably put them maybe 3, California 4. Man, those last 4 I was when I was doing this, I was like, I honestly was trying to figure out which is harder, the top 4 or the bottom 4. I don't know, because if Maryland rallies like they did and can become a good team, like maybe I put them 5. I also really believe in the Atlas despite their record. Like they have one of the best rosters or offenses on paper. So it's hard for me to be like a team with Jeff T is not, good, but they haven't been good. I don't think that like the Outlaws or Chaos are great teams. So I think you probably go Maryland. I don't know. I don't know. Flip around those bottom 4 however you want. But I think my top 4 are Philly, Boston, Utah, California.
Okay, and this is not like a hard and fast. I'm not Quint Kesnick sitting up here being like, this is the power ranking. This changes probably every 30 seconds. I'm like, well, but for the sake of this episode of this podcast, I have Archers 1. I think that defense is so good. I think the Cannons game was a coin toss. Like, I'm not saying I think no matter who won that game, like the other team was right there. So the other thing for me about the Archers is that defense is so good and the offense has not played well. And we know they can. We know they have the guys that can play well. So some of that has to do with that fact. All of these, the top 4 teams are 2-1. Like, it's hard to really separate that. And they each lost like to each other. So,
yeah,
it's not exactly a huge slam. Like you said, I think the top 4 and the bottom 4, I think you can make arguments for pretty much every single one of them to be 1, and you can make arguments for the bottom for every single team to be the bottom. But so I got Archers 1, I got Philly 2. I have really liked what I've seen from them, and I think their loss this weekend was mostly due do a back-to-back and just being tired and stuff. So I got them 2, and then I got Cannons 3. I'd be fine if someone wanted to switch those. I'm not mad about that at all. But I got Cannons 3. I think they are so good. They have so many guys all over the field that can make plays, that can step up in one game and just like light up the scoreboard for a game. We haven't even seen Asher be very good. You know, apart from the highlight of him making the assist with his pants falling down, I don't think he's been very good. So they will, I'm sure, start getting better and better. So I have them at 3. I have Redwoods at 4. They're the one team I think doesn't have an argument to be at 1. Like, I think the other 3 teams have an argument to be at 1. They're the one team that doesn't really have an argument. They're clearly top half. They're one of the better teams in the league, but I think there's those 3 teams, and then there's a decent little gap, and then California. Then I have Whips at 5. I have Outlaws at 6. That's one of those ones that changes. Them and Atlas can flip constantly for me. And then Atlas 7 and Chaos 8. I like the Chaos. I think they are better than we all thought they were going to be, but they're still decidedly in that last place slot. We'll see. That weekend off might have come at a really good time for them, and maybe they can pick up two good games. I won't say wins, but they can play 2 really good games and run into the All-Star game, and maybe we'll have a different opinion at that break. But yeah, that's how I see them. Again, that will change if you ask me tomorrow for sure. I will probably, like, even when you were talking, I was like, oh yeah, maybe I should move Atlas above because like you said, I mean, they got Jeff Teat. Like, am I really gonna pick it? They got Jeff Teat. They got, Trevor Baptiste, Connor Schellenberger. Like, am I really gonna say that they're the second worst team in the league? So yeah, that might change. But
and also, just one more thing in regards to standings, if we could please change the way that they are ranked, score differential should not be before head-to-head record. That is the dumbest thing of all time. All right, I don't mind the Outlaws being 3rd, but they lost to Carolina. They're both 1 and 2. They realistically should be 4th. That's just something I noticed this weekend that I had to get off my chest because I don't like it at all.
Okay, well, I was on a soapbox earlier. You're on a soapbox now.
If you're gonna have conferences, the conference games need to mean something. All right, you can't say like, oh, this is a good matchup, you got to win these, and then be like, just kidding, it's about score differential. No, it needs to be head to head first, then score differential. And I do not care what anyone else says. I will die on this hill. That's the end of my rant.
Oh, okay, I wanted to make sure if you needed a few more minutes, we could.
No, I'm good.
I'm here for it. Speaking of some of the better players in this league, was wondering, we talked about it a little bit a couple weeks ago, wondering where we had our MVP picks earlier, and I'm wondering kind of where we're seeing the MVP right now. I think most obviously Michael Sowers is probably the front runner. I think most people would say he has 17 points on 3 goals and 14 assists. He has 14 assists. The second, third, I think it's 4th and maybe 5th, but at least the second, third, and 4th people on the assist chart are combined for 15 assists. So at least the next 3, if not 4 players have only 1 more assist than Michael Sowers does. So I definitely think that it's pretty obvious that he is kind of the leader in the clubhouse at this point. I am really annoyed because when we did our preseason MVP picks, I picked Connor Fields because of what he had done, and I picked him last year, and I thought maybe he would come good this year. It at least 3 games into the season appear to be coming to fruition. But I'm really mad because when I was making that pick, I was like, there's someone out there that's staring me in my face, and I cannot remember who it is that would be a really good MVP pick. And I could not remember for the life of me who it was. And it was Michael Sowers. And because I remember, like, even in the moment feeling like an idiot, because I was like, it's someone I know I should know, and I cannot think of who it is. And so I just was like, all right, whatever. I'm going with Connor Fields, and I'm going to run. And then game 1 started, or it was probably weekend 2 started, and I saw Michael Sowers, and I was like, oh crap, that's who I meant to pick. And then of course he went off. So I'm a little mad that he's doing so well, and I just forgot he even existed. But I'm wondering maybe who behind Michael Sowers is in the conversation, you think?
I mean, TJ Malone's obviously right there. I think he, not just points wise, but he's obviously like the leader of that Maryland team. And I think, like, I don't know if he'll get as many looks for MVP as he should, assuming that they don't, have a great season. But if they turn it around, then maybe he is. Mm-hmm. I like Dylan Malloy too. Like, I think he's popped off, and just, again, beginning of the season, I didn't think he was going to be even anywhere near this level. But through the first 3 weeks, he's been incredible too.
You know what's tough about Dylan Malloy? And I've been workshopping this, so I want to know what you think. Dylan Malloy is probably the best player in the PLL right now that I completely forget exists the moment the game's over.
Yeah, but it's probably just because he's not like a flashy, like he has a couple, like he has goals that you're like, wow, like the sound of that ping was insane, know? But he's not doing like crazy behind the backs. There's nothing necessarily like memorable. And I also don't think, because he's not like the main like initiator type, like he's kind of like just catching and shooting, that then it's like, it's hard to remember that. So from that perspective, like maybe he's not up there. But I don't look at the Redwoods as like they have their guy right here. Like Chris Cav's been great, McAdory's been great, but Dylan Malloy's been great. So like, and it's hard because in these discussions, because you do kind of have to also consider like their team. Like if you already, like that's the only knock on Michael Sowers right now, is that his team as a whole is insane. Like they're all playing well, but because he has the assist numbers that he does, you can make the argument that like, well, he's setting it all up. Yeah. So I don't know that you can put anyone like on the same level right now. But if I had to pick like a 1A, 1B, it would be TJ's right behind him.
Okay. Yeah, I wrote down Dylan Malloy because I think it's hard to ignore him, but it just doesn't feel like he's actually in the race right now. Like I think we talk about him and we say like, oh, he's having a good season. And but I don't think that anyone recognizes how good that he's second in points. I mean, sure, people do, but just generally in the way that we talk about the MVP race, it's just, like I said, I forget he's a player. I will watch a Redwoods game. The game that he had this weekend, he was great in. Like you said, he had a couple of those goals where it hits the back of the net and you're just like, geez, he rifled that thing. And then the second the game's over, I completely forget he's even a player until the next time the Redwoods step on the field. And I wanted to ask if you felt that way, and listeners, if you guys feel that way, because I'm like, is it just me? Am I just, a hater, or like, is it just something like that where I feel that way, but no one else does? Or is that like a legitimate thing? Because I don't feel that way because I dislike Dylan Malloy. I just think, I don't know, he just does not click in my head, the second their game is off. So yeah, that's interesting. I wrote down a couple goalies. We got Blaze. He's got 52 saves on 63% and 33 scores against. Brett Dobson is in a very similar boat. He has 42 saves at 63% as well, and only 27 scores against. I think those are probably your two leaders in the clubhouse. In terms of goalies, face-off men, I thought was actually really interesting because Trevor and Joe Nardella are both at 63%. Trevor has 50 wins and 28 ground balls. Joe Nardella has 47 wins and 18 ground balls. But then I looked at TD Erlin. He's at 62%, so one percentage point worse. 46 wins, which is right there with them. 25 ground balls, but he also has 5 points. The other two have no points. So I thought that was a really interesting debate. I don't know that, at least 3 games into the season, I don't know that any of them have jumped off the page in a manner in which a face-off guy probably needs to in order to be in this conversation. But I did think it was really interesting, especially starting to think about like face-off specialists of the year and stuff. Is like, oh man, like how much do you value those 5 points over the 1 percentage point of facing off? Like, you know, that's really interesting. And then of course there's always defensive guys that just don't really get much shine. We talked about, oh man, I'm totally just blanking on his name, Kenny Brower for the Waterdogs, and how he's just been shut down. Unfortunately for those guys, they just don't, there's not a statistical way to really look at defensive gameplay. The only one that people really look at is caused turnovers and ground balls, and there are lots of guys out there. I should have actually looked up Kenny Brower's stats and I forgot, but there are lots of guys out there. We talk about JT Josh Harris. He's not a cause turnover guy. He's not a ground ball guy. He is a lockdown defender. I know Jack Rowlett has also been very good this year. Again, I don't know what his stats are, but it's also hard to talk about them because I just don't see a defender winning this game. Not that they shouldn't, but it's just not a thing that it's like, you know, a defensive player winning an MVP in the NFL or something. Like, it's just not going to be a thing that probably happens. So
yeah, no, I mean, if there was one to win it, I think right now, or be the favorite, it would be Kenny Brower. Statistically, 6 caused turnovers, 4 ground balls. But the problem with this discussion overall is just that, like, the more casual fans need that statistic to quantify something. Like, when we're watching, we can say, like, well, he just held Jeff Teat to 1 point, or he held this person to this point, or, you know, whatever it is. Not specifically Kenny Brower, but just defensemen in general. But, like, offensive players, you can be like, well, he had this many touches, and he scored on this many, and he assisted on this many. And so it's, you know, it's tough, but I think that's why we have, like, Defensive Player of the Year, to me, is like the defensive MVP, because that's where we can be like, okay, we can throw on the highlights and be like, look at how he's denying this guy the ball. Look at what he's doing. So I think Kenny Brower is probably the favorite. Arden Cohen, I think, has also been pretty good if we want to have, like, a secondary. But yeah, I don't think there's much competition right now, unfortunately, because Michael Sowers is just so good.
Yeah, we're it'll be interesting to see if he can keep this pace up throughout the rest of the season. I'm trying to do some math off the top of my head. He gonna get, if he can keep up this pace, is he gonna get anywhere near, let's see, he would be, oh wait, you know what, let's do this. 17 divided by 3, that puts him at 5.6 points a game, which would put him at just over 56. So even if he keeps the pace that he's at right now, he'll still be 8 points shy of Jeff Teat's record from last year, which is insane. And that's what I said to people, that I thought that record would stand for a while, because even if you have a crazy good year, that 20 points was such a big jump that, you know, I told people last year, because people thought I was like talking trash about Jeff Teat when I was like, yeah, he's never going to get near this number. I shouldn't say never, but it's highly unlikely that he's going to get near this number again. And people were like, whatever, he's the best player in the world and everything. And I was like, yeah, but he could have a very, very good season. He could break what the record was before he broke it. He could break it by 10 points and still be 10 points worse than he was last year. So
yeah, it's like one of those records that's just like so astronomically, like it's a statistical anomaly.
Yeah,
you know, like it doesn't matter how good you are. Like it's, you know,
and I think that records are always going to be broken at some point. Like, the game always is getting faster and we're scoring more goals and doing all that stuff. So with the exception of some of like the MLL era records where games were so much longer and they played so many of them and stuff, some of those records are probably not going to be broken, at least not in the PLL. But in terms of PLL records, yeah, the game's always getting faster and more skilled, and we're creating rules that allow for more offense. Records are going to be broken. That one is going to take a little while. It's going to take someone truly special to break that. So the other note I had was that, we're talking about the rookie of the year. I found it interesting looking at this. I was looking to see, okay, what are some other positions where people could come in? The two highest point midfielders right now are both rookies, Andrew McAdory and Sam King. And that is crazy. That more than Tom Schreiber, more than Miles Jones, more than Matt Campbell, more than, all of these great midfielders. The two leading guys this year are two rookies, one of which people told me should not have gone number 2 in Andrew McAdory, and one of which slid to, what was it, 16 or something? He slid way down.
Yeah, 17 or 18 or somewhere in there.
Something like that. Yeah, so two guys I don't think even me as an Andrew McAdory fan who thought he was the number 2 pick, like that was good value for him, I wouldn't have had him playing as well as he's playing. So just an interesting little note. I don't know if you have anything to add to it, but
no, both great seasons so far.
Yeah, so I don't know that they'll sneak into the MVP conversation in any meaningful way, but was interesting to note that as of right now, the two best statistically good midfielders were Andrew McAdory and Sam King. So the next topic to talk about is going to be a little bit of a tough one, I think. That is conversation around several of the big hits this weekend. The first one was the Zach Tucci hit on Michael Sowers. I don't even know if there's much of a discussion here. I'd have to imagine you'd agree that was pure illegal nonsense, and I don't want to argue for any of these players to be suspended, but that definitely seemed like a suspendable hit. There was
of all the ones we're going to talk about, that one is the most egregious for sure.
Yeah. I mean, there was no redeeming quality to that one whatsoever. It was a straight up launched helmet to helmet hit for a dude who I don't even think had the ball, right?
No, I think he was getting ready to set a screen.
Yeah, and Tucci just hit him.
I would love to know his explanation. Like, yeah, wild.
And am I misremembering? Did they throw a flag on it?
I believe so. I'm pretty sure it actually got reviewed. He may have gotten a 2-minute. I'm not fully remembering that, but I know they threw a flag because they at least looked at it as like a hey.
Okay.
But yeah.
I mean, honestly, if you looked at that, and I'm surprised he wasn't ejected from the game, because I mean there was just nothing to it. He just threw his head into Sowers, who has concussion issues. Like,
right. I know. Thank goodness that Sowers popped up and was fine.
I know. When he went down, he kind of I don't know if he grabbed his head, but he motioned towards his head, and it was like, oh crap! Like,
yeah,
that's not good at all for a guy who has concussion issues, and then like you said, he popped up, and it was like, oh, okay, good, he's good here. The next one to talk about is the Jimmy Freehill late hit on Ryan Tarafinko. Again, I'd imagine we're probably on the same page. It was late.
It was just late.
Hot. Yeah, it wasn't too bad. It was penalized on the field, and I don't think it's going to go any farther than that.
No.
But it was kind of like, it was so late that it was like, why would you do that? It was that late. It wasn't like he just released the ball. It wasn't like a bang bang play. It was like he shoots, there's like 2 beats, and then you see Jimmy Freehills who just like, well, I'm going, and hauls off and hits him. It was like, what is this? So then we come to probably the big talking point. We'll break it up into 2 separate things. There was the Alex Smith, Zach Currier part where Alex Smith is bringing the ball down. Zach Currier swings a little crazy, catches him up high, and then Alex Smith falls over, and that was kind of the first bit. I don't know how you viewed it. I think it was pretty clearly a slash.
Couple of them.
Yeah, at least one, if not 2. He got him in the helmet and then kind of wrapped around his neck. I don't know that he really like hit him, but he definitely wrapped it around his neck. So
yep.
The question became, though, how far can they look back? And I don't know how you want to talk about it. I don't know if we want to talk about what happened kind of immediately thereafter and then kind of go back. That might just be the best way to do it. Let's do that. So the play with Alex Smith happens. He falls down. The ball ends up with the Outlaws still. Pat Cavanaugh picks it up or is trying to pick it up, maybe. I don't know if he actually had it in his stick or not. And Ben Wayer hits him hard, and Pat Cavanaugh got up and went after him, which, some of his teammates jumped in, which made some of Vinny Brower's teammates jump in, or Ben Wayer's, teammates jump in, and they went back to look at that, and in the process of that, they also looked at the Zach Currier play. Zach Currier on the sideline was very upset that they had gone all the way back to that. I don't know what the exact time was. I definitely think it was within the 30 seconds.
Oh, yeah, it was for sure within 30 seconds.
So I don't know what the rule is about how far you can look back. I somewhat understand his frustration on that point of like, are we just going to re-ref the whole game? Are we just going to keep looking back and finding more things? I can understand his frustration on that. And I do think it was more about that than the call itself. Like, I think anyone who saw it was like, yeah, it was a slash. I am curious though, like what does the rule book actually say about how far you can go back and for what? Because technically they were reviewing this, the Ben Wayer Pat Cavanaugh hit. So why did they even go back and look at that? Like I don't know.
It's just like in the NBA when like a guy hits a 3-point shot and then they'll come back from a timeout and be like, oh, that shot was actually ruled a 2. His toe was on the line. And I'm like, but that happened like 2.5 minutes ago. Like, it's technically the right call, but like, why are we then going back and being like, well, we know we're like onto this other play, but we're still going to go back and penalize you over here, especially in this situation because it sent him to the box. So
well, but all scoring plays are reviewed. They just sometimes they take a minute, like if the play keeps going, to review it. I'm less worried. I'm not all that worried about any of it, but I'm less concerned with something like that and more about like, for me, this is more like it's hard to like, there's not really an example. I guess the example would be that while they're reviewing that 3-point shot, that toe on the line, they also go back to 30 seconds before when the other team had the ball and realize there's a foul back there. And it's like, wait, like, what are we doing? Like, why are we even looking at that? Like, we were reviewing this play. This wasn't even called. Nothing was called on Zach Currier in the moment. There was nothing to challenge or review. So I don't know. It feels like a really slippery slope of like, oh, okay, like now we're just going to keep going back. And now it's like, okay, well, we're reviewing this goal, but we rewound the videotape and we found that there was actually a foul 30 seconds before that. So now this goal is coming off the board and we're going to go to, like, you know, it's,
yeah.
I understand that play, they were kind of in some manner connected, and, you know, I don't know. It's just a weird situation all around, and I don't know that I have an answer, but I can at least somewhat sympathize with Zach Currier in the moment of like, why did we go back and look at that? But let's talk about the actual Ben Ware at Kavanaugh hit. I think I saw you tweet. I think we're on opposite ends of this. I am of the opinion that the Ware hit was clean. It was hard, but he didn't like lead with his helmet. He didn't lower himself. He didn't throw himself into it. He didn't launch it. He just kind of. I think even on the replay, I think that you can see him. He sees Pat Kavanaugh's head is kind of down, and he slows up just a beat and waits for Pat to start kind of standing up, and he is like a fully stood up human being before Ben Ware hits him. So I think it was clean. I think there is maybe a little bit of room if you want to say Pat Kavanaugh was in a defenseless position, you know, trying to pick up that ground ball. I just feel like Ben Ware did everything that we teach people to do when hitting someone, and it feels really harsh to punish him for the fact that there was some helmet contact. But I think it was just, like I said, Ware didn't lower his helmet or do anything. It was just kind of a result of two guys of somewhat similar height running into each other, and there just being a little bit of helmet contact. So
yeah, but I mean, if we're using that argument, then like no penalty should ever be a penalty. Even the slash on Zach Currier, like, he did what you're taught to do. The stick just got a little bit of away from him and happened to hit a guy in the helmet. Was my thing.
See, I would say that is not him. The stick getting away from you is because you didn't do, because you're told, you know, you're not supposed to just freaking baseball swing and hit somebody. So I would say that is what's different, is that he took what you're taught and went an extra mile with it, and it resulted in a reckless thing. I just feel like Ben Ware was just a bigger dude than, I mean, Pat Kavanaugh is a small dude, and just, I don't know. Keep going. Sorry. Sure.
But also in specifics to the Zach Currier thing, I'd argue he was trying to hit the stick anyway. So that I didn't care about that in the moment. I wasn't mad that they didn't call that. I was actually more upset they went back and called it, because I was like with you on that first part, like, why are we going back anyway? But we already discussed that. But to me, it's like, just because someone did something that like you're supposed to do the way you're supposed to do it, to me, isn't a good enough reason to not penalize. Like, I've seen guys in the NFL get ejected for helmet-to-helmet hits that you can tell did everything they could to slow up, and they still made the contact. Now, I'm not saying that Ben Ware did this with the crown of his helmet, because he did not do that. And I also understand that when you're looking at them side by side, it's like David versus Goliath. Like, Pat Cav's like tiny. For me, it was more so of I felt like he was defenseless. And even though Ben Ware did everything correctly and tried to slow up, like, it's still worth something. And more than anything, I think when I was tweeting about it, I was compounding that with the fact that I just watched in full motion. I watched Alex Smith somehow hit, I believe it was Jake Taylor, crumble to the ground while getting hit from behind by Zach Currier. So all this happened in like a 4-second span. So it looked much worse. And I was like, how is none of this being called type of deal? So if we're going to rule that a clean hit, because I'm with you. I think it was mostly like clean as far as the literal hit. I just think then that raises questions moving forward and in the past couple of games of like, what are we counting as like then a penalized hit? Because if I do everything correctly and I just happen to lay you out because I'm bigger than you, then we got to call that the rest of the way. But then that brings into question player safety, and then there's the whole, head concussion type of deal. So look, I'm also biased in this. So
That's fair. I am fairly small. I have been hit hard, and it's one of those things, obviously, when you get hit, you don't see all of the things. So, like, I'm not saying I've never gotten mad at a dude that hit me, but if I got hit the way he got hit, I'd have been like, I mean, there was no intent. There are some dudes. I mean, we just talked about one, Zach Tucci on Sours, like intent.
Yes.
There are some other dudes in this league that are famous for intent.
Oh yeah.
And not that not having intent absolves you of anything, but I think when there's no intent and you do everything the way that you're supposed to do, like at the end of the day, we're playing a physical game and people are going to get hit. People are going to get hit hard. To me, it's like the Graham Hossack one, which, by the way, that's another dude we didn't talk about in the defense part over there. Graham Hossack should 100% be in any conversation of any defensive player. He's been a stud. But remember the hit that he had last year?
Yeah.
To me, it was real similar. And I think they did get him on defenseless player. Like I think they called the hit technically legal, but it was a defensive player that they called. And so I'm if you want to call defenseless position, I'm not too mad at that. I don't know that it should rise beyond, like I've seen people saying that he's going to get like suspended and stuff.
No.
I don't think it should go above what was called or they didn't even penalize him in the game, did they?
No, they gave penalties to like 3 other people, but not the main thing.
They gave Courier the one, they gave Kavanaugh the one for starting the fight, and then there was another Redwood.
There was another Outlaw it was another Waterdog in the box because it was 5-on-4.
Right, it was Waterdog's ball, but it was 5-on-4. They were a man down, and I can't remember who the other one they got was. Probably someone that jumped in afterwards.
Yeah.
Which I felt like was the right call, but if you wanted to call it a defenseless position, I'm not too mad at it, even though I don't think he necessarily was. But
the other thing, though, to keep in mind is like these are the same ref crews every single week, so it's even more imperative that like if that's a clean hit, we're not calling it. That's got to stay that way the remaining 7 weeks or whatever it is. Yeah, compared to like other sports where it's different crews every week, and it's like, okay, well, you don't call that, you do,
Yeah, and to your point again, I don't know it was the exact same crew because I think they do have. I think it's like 1.5. Because sometimes like Matty P won't ref, and that other dude that I don't.
Yeah,
know
he
his
never
name.
comes to Denver. I don't know why. Been trying to see Matty P for 2 years now. Hasn't been out here.
But to your point about them calling it both ways, going back to that Graham Hossack hit, that was called a defenseless player hit, even though it was like textbook.
Yeah.
They called it a defenseless player, and this one they didn't.
Which is tough because it's all up to the discretion of like what you want to call that day, like what counts as defenseless, especially if like he's making a play on the ball, then yes, I'm going to hit you. Like you're trying to, like I'm trying to get the ball too type of deal. So it's like, is that defenseless? But like then we've seen just in the explosion of like head safety specifically that there's a lot, that definition has expanded a lot, which is, it's a gray area for sure. But
and it's such a hard line to walk because like I don't want people getting hurt.
Right.
Like that's not my goal. And again, I'm a small dude. I'm probably a little bit of a baby about it. Like I don't want anyone getting hurt. I don't want to get hurt when I'm out there playing and stuff.
Yeah.
but at the same time, it's like, it is a physical game. Like,
and you could see Ben Ware even afterwards was just like, hey, he even did this to Brendan O'Neill when Brendan was like, what are you doing? He was like, I just hit him, like, So as far as people saying he should be suspended, like, that's the dumbest thing I've heard in my life. Like, no, we're not going to suspend people for playing the sport.
Right. So, I don't know. That's the talk on the internet. But let's move on from last week and let's look ahead to this week in Baltimore. First up, we have the Atlas taking on the Waterdogs. I don't know. We didn't really do a pick'em last week. Are we doing a pick'em this week, or we just riding with it?
No, I'm just riding with it. I haven't put too much thought into this week yet.
I know it's hard when you come out of the weekend and then immediately have to start looking at that on the first day of the week.
But we got a Saturday Sunday weekend. Finally.
I know. That's gonna be fun. My wife's excited because we're gonna get to watch SmackDown this week.
Nice.
Because I've had to miss it. But for me, I think it's gonna come down to Liam Intamin, and if you get that Liam Intamin that's standing on his head, I think the Atlas can hang with him. I don't know that even that necessarily means they win it, but even if he's good and not great, I think it's the Waterdogs game. So
yeah,
now that I've said that,
I lean that way.
Now that I've said it, it's going to be 100%. Atlas is just going to rush them. It's going to be obnoxious, but that's the way it goes sometimes.
Yep.
The next game on Saturday is the Cannons taking on the Whipsnakes. I'm like you, or not like you because you haven't said anything. I think it is going to be all Cannons in this game, but I am a little worried that the Whips are figuring out this offense, and like we said earlier, Jim Stagnita figuring out his team is dangerous for everyone in this league. So I'm going to go with the Cannons, but yeah,
just got to see more from Maryland top to bottom. I mean, good news is we'll get 2 games from them this weekend, but like, again, it was impressive, but the Atlas haven't been great either, so I'm not trying to put too much stock in that just yet. If they upset Boston, there's a different discussion next week, but I lean Boston.
I gotta think they'd want to switch their games, the Whipsnakes this weekend, to get one more kind of run before going up against a team like the Cannons, except for the fact that it would be a back-to-back, and so in a lot of ways this is the better way, because you get your easier game for that backup, or for the back-to-back. But the first game on Sunday will be the Archers versus the Outlaws. McNaney definitely changes some things for the Outlaws, but with only one game under his belt, it's still a little hard to predict. But I think I'm going Archers on this one. Like I said, that defense is just so good and is going to keep them in games that it probably shouldn't. So
yeah, funny enough, I'm not worried about McNaney at all, like in the slightest. I'm worried about the offense just putting up 10 plus goals, and they, it's a scary one, but not that like I think it'll be a blowout per se, but just like you said, the defense will keep them in the game, and they have all the offensive pieces. And if this is the game that Matt O'Keefe finds his shot, like I don't know what Denver can do. So
yeah, and to be fair, I'm not worried about Logan McNaney. I just think it's early to be like, oh, he's going to be this dude. I think he probably will be, but what that means with this Outlaws team is like, I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the Archers for that one, and then the final game of the weekend is the Carolina Chaos taking on the Maryland Whipsnakes. I think it's like we talked about, it's going to be a good opportunity for the Whips to kind of figure out some things with this offense. I just can't imagine Carolina. That being said, I didn't think they would look good earlier this season, and they did. So I'm not going to hedge my bet here. I'm going to pick the Whips, but if we're sitting here and the Whips have lost this second game of a back-to-back against a Chaos team that's better than we thought it would be, it's not that surprising.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to how they play the day prior. I say that every week like it means anything, I guess, but I don't know what version of Chaos we're getting coming off of a bye. And obviously, like we've said, no team has won that second game of the back-to-back, so that's scary as well. And if Boston really beats them up physically, it's going to be tough. And I don't think that, Matt Rambo is a great example. He's already not been great. Is he playing 2 games? If he does, what does he look like? Is Pennell still dishing the rock well? All that stuff comes into play. So this is kind of a toss-up for me, but I think it could honestly end up being the game of the weekend.
Yeah.
I think the first game with Atlas and Philly and this one kind of rival each other for me, as I could see it going either way.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fair. And I don't think many people had the Outlaws having much of a chance against the Waterdogs this past weekend on that second game, but they came out and they won, and so like you said, that second game of the back-to-back is so dangerous, and I don't think anyone's going to be all that surprised to see the Chaos win it, but I think they got it, and it'll be another team that hasn't won 2 games in their homestand, but I think they will get the second one of their back-to-back, which no one has done. So,
well, and their scheduling this week doesn't do them any favors, because playing at 7 Eastern and then the next day playing at 2:30 Eastern is that might be the shortest time between games.
Yeah. No, I didn't even think about that.
Just looking at it, yeah.
Yeah, because you usually start on the Friday, Saturday. You're the first game, and then you're the last game. So yeah, that's less than 24 hours.
I wonder why that is, but that's going to be tough for them, especially like I said, if they get beat up that first game.
Jeez. All right, well, that is all we have for this week. Brandon, what you looking forward to this weekend or week? I guess.
Man, I got a lot going on. Got. Trying to figure out my car, get that situated. Just got to go. Took it out of one auto shop that I think was trying to scam me, taking it to someone I know that's far away from me, but whatever. So I got that. Got just working, ton of work. So then, really, I'm just trying to get to Friday. I guess there's not even lacrosse Friday, so Saturday. I'm trying to get to Saturday and just watch lacrosse.
One thing before we go that was just kind of announced not right before, but shortly before we sat down to record, and that is that Sports Center is going on the road. They're doing all 50 states in 50 days, and they announced that the stop in... Is it Kansas City, Kansas, or is it Kansas City, Missouri?
Missouri.
Missouri, okay. And the stop in Missouri is going to be in Kansas City for the PLL and WLL All-Star game. So that is pretty cool. Brandon will be there for sure. I've considered going. Don't know if I'm going to be there. Would love to be there, especially now. I was like, oh man, Sports Center's going to be there. That'd be really cool. I'm going to go get on Sports Center. But yeah, that was a pretty cool announcement, and one that I think shows how much ESPN is in on lacrosse in general, but especially the PLL and WLL. So pretty cool. Especially it was fun to see some of those people who like to say how bad the PLL is and how they're failing at everything. So pretty cool to see that. But with that being said, we will end it here. And as always, please, if you enjoyed the show, please like, subscribe, comment, send it to friends, do all those things.
Rate it 5 stars.
Yeah, rate it, leave a review. I know is a really big one. For all of anyone who's listening on Apple, I've really made it a point this week, and I will continue to do it moving forward, to include Apple Podcasts when I post. I realized that I had only been doing Spotify and YouTube, and there's probably at least a decent number of people that are listening on Apple Podcasts. So I am going to be posting those links as well. I updated the link in bio to include those 3 links now. So if you are listening on Apple, hopefully I have made it slightly easier for you to find the show. And like Brandon said, if you can leave a rating and a review, it really does help the show. But with that being said, we will catch you guys next week. And until then, as always, we'll see you in the comments.